Welcome to Present Poetry, a podcast where we sit back, relax, and enjoy some poets of the past and present. I'm your host, Erin Crittenden, and before we get started on this week's episode, I want to remind you that all of the material used in this podcast is either public domain or used with permission from the author or the author's estate. It's a fun time for all ages, so sit back, relax, and get ready to hear this week's featured poet. This week's featured poet is Whitnee Coy. Whitnee Coy is originally from Lexington, Kentucky, but now resides in South Dakota with her family, and she enjoys doing stick-poke tattoos with her husband. She's an MFA graduate from the Bluegrass Writers Studio at Eastern Kentucky University, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in education, policy, organization, and leadership. Whitnee is an award-winning poet and children's book author, with 3 published poetry chapbooks and 1 on the way. She also published her award-winning children's book, Elsie's Adventures to Brainy Cove, a social and emotional learning tale, in 2024. At the moment, she is a professor at Oglala Lakota College, a tribal college on the Pine Ridge Reservation. We are reading a few of her poems that she submitted to us through the form at presentpoetry.com. This poem is called The Separation. Before they pulled her wet-slicked being from my numbed body, they prepped us, we may not hear her cry. Minutes before, her heart rate dived to a faint tap, and her 3-pound body had stopped moving. No matter if I had changed positions, sipped chilled water, or however deep they dug the ultrasound wand into me, her life-filled body had become lifeless. As my body rocked back and forth like a swing in the wind, they carved through 7 layers of my body. I shivered from the coldness of metal tools, slicing thick tissue, and the nurse to my right gabbled everything they were doing, reasons why, and I couldn't hear a thing. Only thoughts of how my 7-month-old baby that had grown a part of me may not scream, cry, feel, or be alive. My husband rested his hand on my hairnet, and soon we heard little bleats, a wet lamb, dropped in a pasture left to survive. In a moment, we became 2 entities, left to laugh, wail, and feel the world's aches, separate. This poem is called How Long Do You Visit? Her breathing on my chest sounds like the slow release of a balloon, hissing after months of not knowing how strong of a breather she would be. A hospital stay that long makes you tired and confused and drifting in realities, where your baby is living outside your body without you. You produce milk for no one, and days meld together and roll around like marbles in a mouth. People always want to know how long you visit each day, like there's a sweet spot of time that makes you a better mother or father. The more time drips by that you stare into a clear box, watching for chest movements of this baby, a featherless, fallen bird. If you say hours, there's an immediate pity and confusion about how work is letting you, or how your dishes aren't sink-stacked, and how are your other kids surviving. If you say about an hour, there's a tinge of disgust and a comment on how they could never leave their baby alone. As if time were a testament to motherhood, a testament to your womanhood. This poem is called It's Funny What People Will Say and Do to Relate to One Another. Her purple-hued legs, as long as my fingers, and the tubes that ran throughout her body were as thick as her pine needle arms. When you explain to people your baby is in the NICU, they never know what to say. Prattle about a baby they once knew who survived or read about in a Facebook post. They preach phrases like, normal, you'd never know, even graduated early, or only had a hole in their heart to make you feel relieved. Jostle how lucky you are and how thankful you should feel. Your baby will be fine, and these moments will pass when you can't hold her, feed her, bathe her, touch her petal-thick skin that you once grew. Curious people ask if her eyesight will be okay, and I wonder if oxygen lines will snake through her nose forever. Or pry if she will always be so tiny. Can she catch up? All I can think of is that because she was born so young, she hadn't learned the reflex of suckling and swallowing. No matter how many breastfeeding articles I read, it would never matter, as a toothpick-sized orange feeding tube winds through her nose for nearly 45 days. It's funny what people will say and do to relate to one another. When in the dark of night, while everyone rests, and IVs streak both of your arms, you cry with no sound, so nurses or your husband don't hear, because you should be thankful you survived. She survived. But your body feels empty, and your arms pine to hold her foot-long body next to yours in rough-patterned hospital sheets. Instead, in the quiet beeps of hospital rooms, you grieve the dreams you had for your pregnancy, birth, and the beginning days of her life. Griefs, like heavy weights, tied to your feet as you learn to walk again, shuffle one foot after another to the NICU in the morning light. This poem is called Fatherhood. To witness you with our baby, tubes running like small backwood creeks across the trunk of her body, the size of your hand, heals the fatherless childhood I had. A childhood I didn't know the difference of never seeing a man provide unwavering gentleness, rooted like an oak tree. Never knew how a soft voice could fill the spaces of a broken body, and addiction is not woven into the fabric of masculinity. Strength is quiet and intentional and dedicated, and fills up the room slowly, an ocean reaching the shoreline bit by bit. There was nothing to compare, and yet everything rests on your shoulders as your arms surround her body. You press her to your beating heart for 45 days straight, and I witness what it means to crack yourself open, letting in light to brighten other shadows. This poem is called Oral History. Years to come, your red hair will have wisps of silver, like tinsels icing trees at Christmas, and everything will be a memory. Your dad and I, long gone snapshots, childhood floods you at times you least suspect it. You'll know you got your dad's eye color, an ocean clear with sun sparkling on the riptides. You'll know you got my eye shape, wide half-dollar sized circles left on checkout counters in a Kentucky summer to pay. You'll remember all that has been told to you over the years by those who love you. Mamie's pet spider monkey, yellow-edged Valentine's Day cards tucked in shoeboxes, siblings staggered on ladders to look over the fence during COVID, nattering with neighbor kids, adoption papers found and trees passed down the tribe, summer cabin camping plans, Rathco concerts, board games, dogs that never barked, dogs that always barked, ripped trampoline nets, the day you were born and we almost died. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to like us, leave a review, or share us on social media. If you are a poet or you know someone who is, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us or submit your work through our website, which is www.present-poetry.com. Again, that is www.present-poetry.com. We can't wait to hear from you.